I'm Jean McGregor and I'm an inclusive skating coach. The first inclusive skating session I set up at Liverpool Catholic Club Ice Rink in Sydney, Australia, about 3 years ago. I was working increasingly with people who are eligible for inclusive skating, and they were enjoying it and wanting to bring their friends. So I convinced the ice rink that it would be a good idea to do a come and try session targeting the inclusive skating community, or the eligible inclusive skating community. I've been coaching 43 years, and I would suggest that most of that time I have worked with people with additional needs, not always realizing it at first. The first time I can remember being aware that I was coaching skaters with additional needs was in the early 80s. I have worked with at least 6. I currently am based at one particular ice rink, Liverpool Catholic Club, but in Sydney I have also helped set up an inclusive skating session at another rink. For a coaching session for inclusive skating, ideally you have exclusive use of the ice. People on the ice, be they skaters, coaches or volunteers, are aware of people with additional needs or different requirements. The ice would be resurfaced. You don't want to be going out on really bumpy, choppy ice after a hockey game or a public session. Being able to control volume of music and possibly lighting as well. You don't want lots of strobe lighting happening or even coloured lights flashing, because that can disturb and some people and make them uncomfortable. Yes, again at the rink I'm based at in Sydney, Liverpool Catholic Club. We now have a session, inclusive skating social session, every Saturday, and Inclusive Skating Australia have an agreement with the rink. The skaters don't pay for their first session. They can come in and try it. Dealing with each rink it's on an individual basis. So we have got that arrangement now. Whether it stays, we did have to renegotiate with new management. We were looking at actually subsidising. If the rink didn't allow the free session, then Inclusive Skating Australia would pay the first session for that skater. That's where the come try sessions, if we can do that, anyone can set those up in a holiday period or a time when a skate school isn't on or a hockey training isn't on. If you can seize that time to do a one-off, and hopefully you can then do it again, but a one-off come try where you can target your clientele. For a coach, something really important to remember is when you're working with able-bodied skaters, you usually meet your skaters in a group, a class lesson, and you aspire to cherry pick and get them into a private lesson where you can really hone in on the individual skills, just working on what that individual skater needs. With inclusive skating, we meet them as individuals. They have to start solo first, because most of them can't cope with a group and they all have really different requirements and needs. So we start as an individual skater with an individual coach or a volunteer, and we aspire to get them working together in a group. To me, individually, it's via social media, via the ice rink, because they do advertise the inclusive skating session on their website and social media. So when someone contacts the ice rink, they're directed to myself. It's word of mouth. So within our inclusive skating community at Liverpool, they bring friends. The word of mouth has been the biggest method of communication or contact so far. That is again on an individual rink basis. Where I am, the skaters pay to get on the ice for the social session, and that is the same fee as skate school. They can book in by the term, which skate school has to do, but inclusive skaters do have the option of paying by the week, because sometimes they can't commit to a whole term. With that, they can, if the skater has a companion card, it's probably called different things in different countries, but it means someone who has extra needs can have a support person with them. The rink recognise that, so if the inclusive skater comes in and needs their support person or family member on the ice with them, they skate free of charge. When our skaters have private lessons, then that skater pays the rink the regular ice fee to get on the ice. If Inclusive Skating Australia are hosting a come try session, we did this at the other ice rink, we had to buy the ice. We're looking at doing workshops where Inclusive Skating Australia members will skate for free, but they have to be a member of Inclusive Skating Australia. Down the track, we may have skaters pay us a nominal fee to get on the ice when we're buying ice. First off, find an ice rink. Then approach ice rink management. Usually that, for me, that will be an email first, followed up by a phone call or preferably an in-person chat. Don't always get that straight away. Don't always get it at all. Approach ice rink, ask for ice time that is suitable for inclusive skaters. So that means a 6 a.m. or a 10 p.m. session is not an option. It's not always a perfect time, but if you get a 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that is doable, as is a 10 a.m. Then it's a case of discussing with ice rink first how much they're going to cost, they're going to charge us, and what we get. Do they provide staff to hand out skates? Do they turn the lights on for us? Do we have to pay someone to come in and turn the lights on? And then get that in writing. Put it in writing, even if it's a phone call. I do this is to confirm, this is what we have, and I will nag until I get a reply in writing. Sometimes management will say yes, but they forget to tell the person on the ground. So you need to have that communication. And then it's a case of, once you've got a date and a time, before that, I just ask people if they're willing to help. I often approach the local figure skating club, ice hockey club, speed skaters if they're there, even a coffee club. It's better to have too many volunteers than not enough. It's also useful to have volunteers who are under 18, particularly if you're going to have potential inclusive skaters come who are younger. The peer group thing works very well. They've got the same interests, be it the TV show or the game they play, that they can talk about that whilst they're getting someone even just familiar with sitting in the cold. We do have some frames, so like Zimmer frames that are made for the ice. At the ice rink, I'll be looking for plastic chairs that we might be able to utilise or push people around on for a little bit if they're fearful of getting on the ice. Make sure there is accessibility for wheelchairs. That sometimes requires fire doors to be opened. Check that all the volunteers have in New South Wales, it's a working with children check, so a safeguarding check, I think you call it in the UK. So make sure anyone over the age of 18 has that. I insist on getting a copy of it. Even citing it isn't enough. I want to keep it on record that they have a current one. And do some training for the volunteers, ideally a week out. Something like that is not always ideal, but if a session is starting at, say, 4 p.m, I'd want my volunteers there at 2 p.m. to go through some suggestions, do's, don'ts, how you approach someone. Can I help you? Can I hold your hand? Can I help your feet? Would you like to hold my hand for balance? And just basic how to do introduction to skating. I always insist that before a skater gets on the ice for the first time, they actually do a lesson off the ice. So that's making sure the skates are done up properly, but always on the ice. Do marching steps on the ice, get used to walking around in the skates. If you can, get them to sit down on the rubber or the floor and get back up again, because whilst they might know how to get up when they fall over, the height of the blade makes a difference. Usually what I do is explain to them what we're about, because a lot of people don't understand. I usually ask for a dry cut. So I want the ice to be smooth, so that's shaved, resurfaced, but not necessarily real fast. So for the competition that we're having now, the ice is resurfaced, water is laid, and it's beautifully smooth and glassy. And that can be really fast. So for a new skater where they've never experienced their feet sliding before, that's terrifying. So a dry cut where the ice is shaved, but it's not had fresh water laid, that is a little bit slower. It's better for the new skater, and it is better for the wheelchairs. The athlete, be they in a wheelchair or not, as they get more comfortable, then they'll like the faster ice. But at first, slower is better. First off, I go to those groups that I mentioned, the skate school, the coffee club, the hockey speed and figure. I ask the volunteers, I do an explanation of what they're doing. They're not coaching, but they're helping people enjoy the ice like they do. I want them to be a competent skater. That doesn't mean they need to do big fancy tricks. They just need to be able to balance well and skate forward and backward and stop. That would be my skating requirement. The big thing is someone who has empathy, who cares, who understands, who's willing to work with someone who is a bit different to them. And then I look at doing some training with them. But the other requirements are, again, over 18, must have that safeguarding, working with children thing. First aid is desirable. It's not essential, but it's very much desirable. But the big thing is empathy. So once I have my pool of volunteers, now some of them may not be able to skate. They might be from a mum of a figure skater who has said, yeah, I'll go and help. But that mum might be fantastic at helping get skates on, doing skates up, signing people in, getting their contact details so we can follow up. So I look at their skill sets. Because they're there and they're extra bodies, and we always need extra help. So be it someone on the sign-in desk, no one can be in several places at once. So if you only have people wanting to be on the ice, then you're stuck. How do you get the inclusive skaters onto the ice? Volunteers are great because they can do tasks that need to be done. They can help on the ice. The more volunteers on the ice we have, then the greater the number of inclusive skaters we can work with at any one time. I don't want to make it sound like they're unreliable, but you have to get something in writing. So I have yet to have a formal contract drawn up. The day will probably come when I have to. There is a certain amount of goodwill, because if they don't have any goodwill, they're just going to say no. Or they do, as they have in times, said, yes, you can have this ice, but you are going to pay $1,000 an hour or whatever it is. The almighty dollar reigns in ice rinks very much. So rink managers, rink supervisors and managers, they have to answer to someone else. They have to answer to a board or an owner. For me, it's not good to go to the cheaper rink all the time, or the rink that is always kind to us, because you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you, but you also want to share. You want to get inclusive skating out into other areas, into other rinks. The regular sessions are advertised on the ice rinks website, on the ice rinks signage. They have electronic scrolling screens. It's advertised there. It's advertised on Inclusive Skating Australia's Instagram, via email to our members, on our social media, and also we send it to other rinks. I said to send it to other coaches I know who work with inclusive skaters, and we send it to the Coaches Association to send out to all their coaching members. An induction session for the first timer is they approach the ice rink to pay, or to sometimes they're charged, but they're not meant to be charged the first week, to get the skates, if that's appropriate for them to be wearing skates, or to be shown where they need to go if it's a wheelchair, because it's a different entry. They should be guided to the Inclusive Skating Australia desk, which is opposite the rink skate rental and cashier, to where we take their name, contact details. First off, we ask them how they heard about us. Then it's, what do you want us to know? How would you like to be treated? Do you need someone to speak loudly to you? Do you need help seeing? We have stickers, different coloured stickers mean different things. So green might be sensory sensitive, blue vision impaired. So that and they wear that on a lanyard. They're given a lanyard with their name and these stickers, so that the volunteers and the coaches can look and go, oh, I need to stand in front of you to speak to you because you're hearing impaired. And then we do the get the skates on. So they're supervised getting the skates on. And then we do that lesson that I spoke of previously on the rubber, on the floor. And then they're taken to the ice. And a coach is called over. This is Mary. This is her first time. And it's up to the coach to start them off. And then Mary might take to it really well, and she might be paired up with a volunteer. If I know someone's coming, if they're booked in or let us know they're thinking of coming in the next few weeks, then I always suggest that they wear long pants, long sleeve shirt, bring a jacket, bring layers, wear regular socks, bring gloves and a beanie. If they've got a bike helmet, bring that. And if they've got knee pads from skateboarding or something like inline skating, bring knee pads, elbow pads. And it helps because they've just got a little bit of protection, and it makes it less scary for the coach and or volunteer, particularly if they're very unstable. We do have some frames that have been made specifically for the ice, so they're metal and they glide along. They're a bit like a Zimmer frame, but they slide across the ice. And again, that's a reason to have pretty smooth ice, because they don't cope with bumps. And ours are height adjustable. There is a limit onto how high the person can be that uses them, and they help a lot. They give the skater confidence. Rather than relying on actually a person, they get a sense of skating by themselves, and then they can get better balance. Their balance does improve, not instantly. It takes time. And we've had skaters who have actually been able to really master a new skill using a frame, and then eventually come off the frame and still be able to perform that skill. The other things we use are bubble wands, because a lot of people like chasing bubbles, whether they're little or large, and it takes their mind off the fact that they're skating. Once we know, we coaches and volunteers, but more the coaches, are confident that this person can really skate, but they're just not sure of it, then by distracting them with the bubbles or even balls, playing catch, they're moving without realizing it. And that's how we get them going. By having exclusive use of the ice for a start, rather than trying to work with the random general public, having an appropriate number of coaches/volunteers as to the number of inclusive skaters you have. We rely on families supplying some of the volunteers. We do have some from the outside skating community, but a lot of it is in-house. So Mary comes skating because she is an inclusive skater, but if her sister has learnt to skate, then we will help teach said sister, and or mum, dad and brothers, carers, even support workers. We will teach them how to skate as well, so that they can be on the ice and assist. At the moment we're running approximately 20 to 25 skaters plus the volunteers on our Saturday social session. And if I was just finding volunteers within our wider skating community, I don't think I'd have enough, and then it wouldn't be safe. First off, do it. Talk to your colleagues, find out if anyone else is interested in doing it too, because the more you have, the better. If you've got other coaches who will help ask their skaters if they'll help out. If you're going it alone, so be it. I did the first time, but I managed to convince some other people to come along and see what it's like. Sort out your volunteers before you advertise, or at least find out how many you've got, because if you only have a very small pool of volunteers, then you might have to cap how many people you allow in that session, or you have to do it in the flights of a certain number of skaters on the ice at any one time. The more volunteers you can get, the better, and give them some training. There will be people who are really enthusiastic and want to help, but you might have to rein them in. They might think they're going to be rushing out and teaching someone to skate really, really fast straight away. You might find, as I did, that you need 3 volunteers for one skater. It's not always going to be a one-on-one. It often is more than that. Have a plan, even though that plan may well go out the window. Have a plan of what you're going to do, or what you want your volunteers to do, and a bit of a schedule that we're going to welcome people on the ice. We're going to show them, point out where the bathrooms are, or where the exit is if your rink has an entry and a separate exit. And if someone just needs to pace up and down the floor without getting on the ice, let them do it, but have someone with them to supervise them. Even in that case, it might be just their parent or support worker. But if they're in skates, don't let them walk up and down without supervision. Definitely do it though.